Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. This is another ranking video and this time it's going to be Talking Heads. Now a couple of weeks ago I did a ranking of the XTC albums and I said then that I may do the Talking Heads because I always sort of group the two together. You're either in the mood for them or you're not. And I thought I'd give myself a week listening to the Talking Heads albums all over again because I haven't heard them in ages. I enjoyed them so much that I did them over 2 weeks, and I did a Beatles video last week. They've had 8 albums, 8 studio albums between 1977 and 1988, and I have to admit I really like them all. There's not one I think is bad. I think they've all got their qualities, all got their pluses, and some of them have got their minuses as well, but overall the worst album is a very good album, with the best being an excellent album. I don't think any are totally outstanding, but they're all top level for me. So I listened to them for 2 full weeks, and before I made my list I had an idea of what my top 8 would be, and it was completely different. By the time I'd finished listening, my views had changed. So Talking Heads, 4-piece band, David Byrne on vocals and guitar, and he wrote most of the stuff. Chris France is the drummer, and his wife Tina Weymouth on bass, and Jerry Harrison on keyboards. So number 8, and it's from 1988, and it is their last album, and it's Naked. And this is not a half bad album at all. It starts off with Blind, which is a very good opener. Mr. Jones is full of horns. There's more horns in this album than there is in any other ones, but it's still excellent. Nothing But Flowers was a single, brilliant song. The Facts of Life, it's a wee bit weird. It's like the old style Talking Heads. The way I look at Talking Heads is I see them as sort of 3 different phases. The first 2 albums were like, you know, punk influenced. The next 3 were very experimental with Brian Eno, and then the last 3 were more or less mainstream. This is like a mainstream album. It is catchy, but it is extremely good. Totally Nude is got a very South American feel to it. A very strong album, and I guess my number 8, which I didn't want to put it at 8, but I had to. So from 1988, and it got to number 3 in the charts, and it was their highest charting album in the UK, studio album at least anyway. A number 7 from 1985 and a number 10 album, and it's Little Creatures, and this has got the 2 big hit singles, And She Was, Road to Nowhere. Again, this is a very, very strong album. Perfect World is a great song, as is the very catchy Creatures of Love. There's one song I'm not keen on, and it's over 6 minutes, and it's Television Man. It just does nothing for me. But the song before it, I remember listening to this, Walk It Down, and I'm thinking, I'm not too keen on this, I don't really recognise this, and then the chorus comes on, knew it, loved it. And Stay Up Late is another really good song. But again, it is quite mainstream, but it's a very, very strong album, but only gets my number 7. And number 6, and this, people may think this is far too low and this should be number 1. But I always thought this was slightly overrated, and I still do in a way, but it is a very strong album, and it's from 1980, and it's Remain in Light, and this got to number 21 in the charts. Little Creatures going to number 10, by the way. This is the one with the big hit single and one of their best ever songs, Once in a Lifetime. It's the very first Talking Heads song I ever heard, and I remember seeing the video on TV on Top of the Pops, thought it was brilliant. Born Under Punches is really good, as is Cross-Eyed and Painless. But I think my favourite song off this is The Great Curve. Now there's a couple here that I am not that keen on, and one is Seen and Not Seen, and The Overload. Maybe a little bit too experimental for me, but yeah, it's a strong listen. Side 1 is better than side 2, but I guess my number 6. Number 5, and I included this in my top 40 albums of the 1970s, which I'd probably take out now and put one of the other ones in, and it's Fear of Music from 1979, and this got to number 21 in the charts. This again is better side 1 than it is side 2. Now I do have a problem with some of these songs from Remain in Light, and Fear of Music, and the ones previous, and the reason I'll tell in a moment or two. But Air is fantastic on side 2, although side 2 does pale in comparison to side 1. Heaven also on side 2 is great. I love the Isimbra, the sort of rhythm of it. Paper is good, Cities is good, and Life During Wartime is brilliant. Fantastic song. So this is Fear of Music from 1979. It gets my number 5. Number 4, and a bit of an eyebrow raiser, it's So High, but this is a catchy album, and this is their catchiest album, and it's True Stories from 1986, and I got to number 7 in the charts. So the two that are regarded as the worst two really are the two highest charting albums. I think this is great. Love for Sale is like a rock song. This is almost like a mainstream album. It's not experimental like the Talking Heads of the very early 80s. Hey Now has got a real Cajun feel, as does Radiohead, but they're fantastic. Wild Wild Life is a really great single. People Like Us, the violins in it are very catchy. A very strong album. I thought before I was going to do this would be last, but no, this actually climbs up to number 4 for me. Thoroughly enjoyed listening to this, and it deserves more credit than it actually gets. Number 3, and their debut from 1977, and it's Talking Heads 77. Fantastic album. Starts off with Uh-Oh, Love Comes to Town, really good. New Feeling, Tentative Decisions, Happy Day are all quite jerky post-punk songs which are very good. I love the way No Compassion, the tempo changes, it's really excellent. Side 2 however is even better. The book I read, Don't Worry About the Government, seems to have a bit of a mandolin feel to it, which is fantastic. First Week, Last Week, Carefree is possibly my favourite off it, and then you get Psycho Killer and Pulled Up, which was the original favourite off this. This is the first Talking Heads album I bought. I bought it in the 80s, and I like the sort of punky sound of Pulled Up. A very strong album, and it gets my number 3, and it's got the number 60 in the charts. And number 2, from 1983, and a number 21 album, and there are big price cuts or prime cut sticker on it, so it was a cheapie that I bought in the 80s, and it is Speaking in Tongues. Yeah, this is probably their most dancey album, but this is the one that suffers the most because I definitely prefer the versions on Stop Making Sense, although they're still very good. Like Burning Down the House is great, Making Flippy Floppy is great. Slippery People, I remember buying this because I knew the live version, and I was disappointed whenever I heard the studio version because I bought this around 1986 or so. Swamp, very good. Pull Up the Roots, excellent, and then it finishes with the very laid back This Must Be the Place, Naive Medley. An absolutely excellent album, full of rhythms. It is dancey, it is clubby, and I think it's great. And a lot of this was played during the Stop Making Sense tour, so yeah, this gets my number 2. And my favourite Talking Heads album is More Songs About Buildings and Food, and it's their second album, and it's from 1978. The Good Thing is extremely catchy. Warning Sign has got a really good bass line on it, and I love the way at the end of that bass line you get the like acoustic guitar strum coming in. I'm Not in Love, I like the real stop start in it, it's fantastic. Thank You for Sending Me an Angel, the opener is 2 minutes of sheer brilliance. Found a Job, that last song on side 1 is one of my favourite Talking Heads songs of all time, or the top 5 anyway. Stay Hungry races along beautifully. You then get the cover Take Me to the River, which is great, a real slowed down version of that, and then it finishes with a country song, but it's really good. I like this, a lot of different styles, and it is my number 1 Talking Heads studio album. But my favourite Talking Heads album, and I'm not including it in the ranking, is the live album Stop Making Sense. I think this is fantastic. It's my favourite live album of all time, especially the expanded CD version. I would love it to be transferred to vinyl. But you get Psycho Killer, Swamp, Slippery People, Burning Down the House, Girlfriend is Better, Once in a Lifetime, What a Day That Was, Life During Wartime, and Take Me to the River. And I will say, of all those songs, I prefer the live versions of them all, apart from one, which is Once in a Lifetime. I prefer the studio version of it because it was the one I was used to the most. But Life During Wartime, I'm going to actually link that below the live version. It is magnificent. It makes you actually feel as if you should get up and do a bit of exercise, which I never feel like that, but sometimes whenever I watch that I do feel like it, although I never do. But anyway, a fantastic album, so that's my number one of all their albums. But more songs about buildings and food wins with the studio albums. Okay, that's me for now. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to have another video quite soon. All the best now. Bye bye.